Hello everyone, and welcome to today's first virtual Corporate Governance and Audit Committee on the 22nd of July. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Members, if I can just remind you to keep yourself muted whilst you're not speaking, if you can indicate to speak in the chat, and make sure your phones and your Skype are on do not disturb. So we're first item is that we're going to have a change to the agenda. I'd like to propose that we move item number 7, the draft annual governance statement 2019-20, to after item number 11 and before item 12. Is that seconded? Councillor Taylor, thank you very much. Everyone's happy with that. Thank you very much. So item 1 is the membership of the committee. We've had apologies from Councillor Pinnock and Councillor Bolt without any subs, but we've got Councillor Hall, Councillor Taylor and Councillor Antonio Davis in attendance. Thank you very much. Minutes of the previous meeting, I'm happy to move them. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Taylor, and I think we're happy with those. If anyone has any interests, please do declare them, but I don't believe we do. Admission of the public. This meeting is taking place in public, but items 17 and 18, which are appendices to items 13 and 14, will be taken in private at the end of the meeting. We don't have any deputations or petitions or any public questions that I'm aware of. So that takes us on to item 8, which is the annual report on Treasury Management 2019-20, and that's going to be presented by James Anderson, who's our Head of Accountancy. James.
Slight correction, Will, Chair. It's Rachel who's going to present this, so
right.
Over to Rachel first.
Apologies, Rachel. Thank you very much.
That's all right. That's fine. Yeah, I'll just go through the main points of the Treasury Management Outturn report. I will start with borrowing. Borrowing increased overall by 31 million during the year. This was all temporary borrowing. It was largely due to the capital plan. That was funded by 29.8 million of borrowing. The Bank of England kept rates at 0.75 for most of the year, cutting it to 0.25 in March and then 0.1. So short-term rates remained low. The loans that we actually dealt ranged between 0.72 and 1%. The council repaid 10 million of long-term borrowing during the year, 5 million LOBO and 5 million PWLB, which brought total long-term debt to 373.7 million. We also converted a 10 million LOBO loan with Barclays to a fixed rate of 3.75%, previously paying 4.1%, which brings total LOBO loans to 61.6 million. The CFR on page 6, which is the council's underlying need to finance expenditure via borrowing, increased by 25 million to 636.9 million. Regarding any long-term borrowing, there's currently a consultation on PWLB rates, where local authorities have been invited to respond. Hopefully, following the responses, the government will bring rates down and implement a mechanism where borrowing is not for yield, so it's not for any commercial aspect. If rates do reduce, we'll consult with Arlene Close to convert some of our short-term into fixed term. Although short-term currently is really extremely cheap, around 0.05 to 0.1%. I'll just move on to investments. As per the Treasury Management Strategy, we aim to keep investments around the 30 million. During the year, we averaged 32.7 million, earning average investment rate of 0.73%. The majority was placed in money market funds, which provide instant access and is low risk. During the year, the council invested 10 million in the CCLA property fund, which returned a gross dividend yield of 4.4%. The council received dividends of 183,000. There was a lot of volatility around the cash flow at the year end. The council is usually short of cash anyway due to timing of nature of cash, such as grants and council tax. There's not normally a problem with getting hold of any borrowing or any cash. It's always available. However, with the effect of COVID during March, meant the local authority to local authority market, the borrowing was becoming in short supply. All local authorities wanted to keep hold of any cash that they had, so borrowing was pretty limited. The government reacted to COVID by providing councils with funding before the year end. The council received 24 million on the 27th of March, which pushed our year-end investments up to 52 million. So we had additional cash available, which we had to manage in the best way to reduce any risk. We also received additional amounts for business grants, but that was in early April. So a lot of that was invested in the DMO, which is an executive of the HM Treasury. So that's the main highlights. If anybody got any questions?
Thank you very much, Rachel. Members, if you have any questions or comments, please indicate to speak in the chat, and I'll bring you in. No, it seems you've done such a good job, Rachel.
Okay.
Right, is everyone content to accept and note the report? Yeah, proposed by John, seconded by Steve. Pal's indicated. So, right, thank you very much, Rachel.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is number 9, the update on the council final accounts for 2019-20. So I suspect this will be James and Eamon. James, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this one is me. Yeah, it was just a brief paper to advise members of the revised timetable for the accounts on the back of the interference from COVID. SIPFA reacted pretty quickly in this and issued some revised deadlines due to the obvious capacity constraints going into this period. So what previously the accounts had to be published as draft unaudited by 31st of May, with an audit following by the 31st of July. So the new deadlines are for us to produce the draft unaudited accounts by the end of August, so 31st of August, and the audit period is now extended to the 30th of November. So the audit period's got an extra month as well from the normal 2 months. Just in terms of an update as to where we are expecting to be done over the coming days. We're very close now. We're in a period of high-level review from the draft statements, which is a period where Eamon and I sort of review them, and we sort of address all those review points. So yeah, hopefully I can. They'll be online shortly. At the point we put them online, the public inspection period will start. That lasts for 6 weeks, and you have to have your draft accounts issued before that can start. So that will formally be done at the same date. Just then, a bit of an update in terms of things previously reported to members. The 2 historic objections involving the PFI and the LOBO were resolved during the year, so they dated back to 2016-17. So good news in the fact that they're done now, and so it's a clean slate from that perspective. So again, probably the only other point is we're obviously working with Grant Thornton and sort of recognising that they've got some capacity constraints as well, and their timings have equally been affected. So we have been feeding bits and pieces of sort of discrete areas of working papers to them, so that they can hopefully be working in the background as well. But I'm sure Steve and John will update perhaps on that later. So yeah, that's it from me. If there's any questions.
No members have indicated, but I'd just like to say thank you very much for that, James, and all of the work that you do in incredibly challenging circumstances. It's much appreciated. That's all right. Members, we're happy to accept the report. Yep, thank you very much. Right, item 10 is the external update, and I believe we've got Stephen and John from Grant Thornton, our external auditors, to speak to us.
Good morning, everyone. It's John Roberts here. It's the first time I've met the committee, actually, and I think first time Stephen's met the committee. Just to say that we're looking forward to working with you over the course of this audit and beyond. Stephen's absolutely permanent senior manager for the audit. I myself covering for the absence of Robin Baker, who's on a long-term absence. I suspect that absence will continue for the way into the foreseeable, for certainly the period of this audit. So I'll be very happy to continue with that role as long as it takes. I'm an experienced audit partner within Grant Thornton. I've had audits of a number of large authorities such as yourself. So certainly I'm very used to the audit issues for dealing with a place as significant and as complex as the authority here. So the audit plan, and just to update, since the last meeting, the first task that Stephen and myself did was to conclude on last year's audit and make sure that was all signed off appropriately, and we did that with the controls that we had to follow. So we, still an opinion that I have to be able to stand by. So that means I still have to look at the work that's been conducted previously, but we were certainly able to do that with the minimum amount of disruption and fuss, really, just to conclude off last year's audit. So we're into this year's audit, and very unusual circumstances of reporting and then auditing under the COVID-19 challenges. The plan, I'll assume you've read the document. I won't do a page turn on it, but happy to take questions from any of the pages. But by way of introduction, I'll just say in terms of the COVID aspects, I'd say there are three areas. There's the logistics, there's the technical, and then there's the value for money side of things. So on the logistics, we will be auditing mainly, I suspect, through remote access. Now, we've already completed our NHS audits using this methodology, and on the positive side, it works. We can effectively conduct an audit remotely. It's an interesting challenge because, of course, we never get the audit team together, and then the audit team never gets together with the finance team. So it's very unusual, and we have to work hard to make sure that our communication lines remain effective. But the technology that we have, both for communicating in meetings like this, I think it's really brought on, the crisis has brought on innovation, it's brought on progress, and some of the things that it's brought on we're absolutely going to stick with when we return from the lockdown. We can also share documents in a secure way. We have a software package that works very effectively for that purpose. And again, that encourages us that the security and the logistical conduct of the audit can be undertaken effectively. All those positive. The one thing that we will have to constantly monitor and constantly keep under review is that it does tend to take longer. It takes longer issuing queries, responding to queries from our side. It can take longer in terms of how we supervise and coach our more junior members of the audit team. So all those things we will bear in mind, and we will actively manage. Now we've had the experience of doing it once already through our NHS portfolio. Then comes the technical side, and we've already been in quite a lot of active conversation with your officers on the technical implications. We've written papers on it. We've run training sessions on it. We've engaged with SIPFA as they've developed their technical advice during the pandemic, and those will be areas of the accounts, particularly around valuations, around property, plant and equipment, investments, around pensions assets, all key areas we expect to be impacted. Your estimates and judgments, and particularly around things like impairments, are going to be important areas there. Then on the value for money side, that's really around the finance agenda and the financial sustainability and financial health of not just this council, but of local governments as it goes through the crisis and emerges out of it afterwards, and the pressures on income, the demand-led pressures that you're all too familiar with. Our responsibility this year will be to be looking at the response to the value for money audit, bearing in mind that the value for money audit is still meant to focus on the adequacy of the council's arrangements as at the 31st of March. But what we can be doing is looking at what's happened since as a test of the overall adequacy and robustness of those arrangements, and drawing conclusions from that. So that's how we will be targeting the value for money work. You'll also see in the plan details about fees and about the change in fee agenda. We've had a lot of discussions with officers there, both in terms of the closing fee variations for last year's audit, but also the proposal for this year. And this is all very much under consideration by the Redmond review, the scope of audit and how audit quality needs to be retained. We've had an honest conversation with your officers saying what we think we need to be doing in order to ensure that our audit responds to that moving agenda, and that's the agreed position with your officers reflected in this document. We've also had a look at the impact of COVID, and as I say, there's logistical challenges to some extent. There's also efficiencies also on travel costs, and also on other costs that we might incur. So we sort of in the round at this stage, assessing the position that we will seek to retain any COVID-related pressures within the fee envelope that we've set out in the document that we've got, but we'll keep that under review, and we'll be talking to officers if that moves on or off track. The only other point I think we agreed last year, Stephen, it was the housing benefit fee, which is shown as TBA in the document, and we now have an agreed position. So if you could update on that and any other points from your perspective, and then we'll take members' questions.
Okay, shall I just go on to the audit progress report, because I think it follows on quite neatly from what you were saying, John, as well, yeah? Mm-hmm.
Well, shall we just pause for members' questions on the plan first, and the HB fee, if you could just give the HB fee as well.
Okay, yeah, because we've agreed the HB fee with Eamon, and yeah, we've got confirmation it came. I'm just pulling up the exact figure so I can tell members what it is whilst we wait for any questions, yeah? Because we take account of the actual amount of work that the number of additional workbooks that are undertaken by the council, and the re-performance that we do, looking at last year's qualification letter. So excuse me, members, I'm just pulling out the fee proposal. It's yeah, it's £34,000 plus VAT for 1920. Mm-hmm.
Any questions on the plan before we move on to the progress update?
No members have indicated yet, so if you want to progress, then we can invite questions again at the end. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, John's helpfully covered off an awful lot of the points that would be addressed in this. It's a relatively brief progress update. So there's a section on COVID-19 that we've discussed at some length, how it impacts upon our working arrangements, your working arrangements, and interestingly, the areas of the accounts that we expect to be affected. And the key areas there, this is on page 74 of the pack, is the valuation of property, plant and equipment, and your valuer is saying that there is a material uncertainty around land and buildings valuation as a result of COVID. So although we might not see that coming through dramatically in the numbers that they're reporting, we're expecting you to disclose that there is an uncertainty, and we've had conversations with James where that's going to happen. But yeah, there's some other key areas on page 74 which affect the accounts. James quite mentioned the changes to the timeline, so I won't go over that again. In terms of progress on the 1920 audit, just to give you a bit more granular detail on that, in terms of the planning of the audit, that's well underway. So we've we've been in touch with an internal audit. We've done minutes reviews. We've sent out our letters of assurance, and letters will be coming back to this committee at the next meeting. Assurances from the chair of the audit committee and also from the treasurer as well. So there's planning's well underway. And we were fortunate to get some discrete areas of the accounts from James before the accounts are published. So we've been able to do some early work on land and buildings valuation. We've been in touch with our own expert valuer who's going to look over your valuations for us. We've been able to do some early work on the pension liability as well, and been in touch with the pension fund auditor, which has been helpful. And these are two of the big significant risks. We've done some early work on the collection fund as well, and we've also done some early work on the group, which was one of the issues last year in terms of the valuation of the stadium. So we've made some progress in understanding what's going to happen there, and there is to be a valuation of the stadium carried out this year. Housing benefits that I mentioned earlier on, that's moved on quite a bit really. So we've issued what we call our discovery sample, our initial sample, over to Simon Brook, and he's done a lot of the initial testing, and he's done some of the extended testing. There's 9 extra workbooks that get prepared, and 6 of those have been completed already. So we're planning to do some review of that. And our certification work also covers the teachers' pension, so we've been in touch with the lead officer on teachers' pensions as well. So yeah, hopefully you can see it's well underway, but we are looking forward to getting hold of those draft accounts and obviously finishing off the rest of the key areas. But yeah, happy to take any questions on that. There is a letter appended to the end of the progress report, which was sent by John to Eamon, and that gives another listing of some of the key areas that we're going to focus on as part of the audit. We did discuss this back on the 11th of June with Eamon and James, but it covers COVID-19. It mentions going concern, interestingly, because although there's a presumption that the council is a going concern, there's a sharper focus on the work that we'll be carrying out this year. And it talks about the dedicated school grant as well, which is a key area that we've been discussing. But as I say, I'm happy to go into any more detail or take any questions on anything that I've mentioned there.
Right, thank you very much. While I give members an opportunity to indicate to speak if they wish to ask a question or comment, can I first welcome you to the Corporate Governance and Audit Committee. It's nice to see you both, and thank you for the comprehensive update and the papers as well. I'm pleased to hear that your audit work's been going well remotely with our partners in the NHS, and pleased to see the progress that's been made with regard to our previous audits and the ongoing work for this year's in challenging circumstances. So thank you very much. No members have indicated to speak, so unless anyone now indicates otherwise, I think everyone's content to note the report and progress. Yeah, I think that's seconded by Councillor Hall. Excellent. Right, thank you very much both for attending. It was fantastic to meet you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, that brings us on to the next item on the agenda, which is number 11, the annual report of internal audit 2019-20 and issues for 2021. And I believe that's Martin Durnley.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Morning, everyone. So I've done the annual report for 2019-20, for you. This is a document that was shared with members of the committee back in April, and is essentially unchanged from that particular point, other than in respect of one aspect, which is the audit plan for 2021. So as the colleagues from GT have pointed out, the issue of coronavirus COVID has sort of had some impact in 2021, but let's just do 2019-20 first, because essentially the audit plan was our audit plan was to all intents completed, because ours is based on the calendar or the municipal years. So 2019-20, the bulk of the work as planned was performed. We had a reasonably successful year in terms of achieving the plan. Of the work that was performed, 82% of it achieved a positive assurance, 18% negative assurance, which was a very marginal improvement on the previous year, when only 22% of the work was achieved a negative assurance. From a point of view of what that means, therefore, that one of the things that I'm required to do as part of my annual report is to give you an opinion about the council's operations. And I am pleased to tell you that I have concluded that overall the council has, and I read this out every year, the council has a sound arrangements to operate its business effectively. But the audit plan doesn't cover everything by any means. As they used to say, auditors are watchdogs, not bloodhounds, and cannot cover everything. And actually, our audit plan is significantly smaller than it was in the past. Nevertheless, it's based on a sort of degree of risk assessment and on the basis of the work we performed, and some so that was the planned work we performed to achieve that coverage, and some of the unplanned work we've performed. The consequence of which is that using all that information and knowledge, I am reaching a conclusion for you, and I apologise to everyone, but I've just got one of these codes that the council insists that I fill in every so often to do. So I will just do that if to avoid me being logged out in the middle of our conversation, which I have now done. Thank you, Chair. Sorry about that. So therefore, I think that 2019-20 was broadly successful. The various information that's contained within my annual report that is meant to help you and assist you in reaching a conclusion that you're happy about the quality and nature of internal audit work. What I go through, and there is also an obligation under public sector internal audit standards to advise you about those standards, to advise you about the performance of internal audit against those standards. I am still of the opinion that we are broadly compliant, which is the highest standard, and the report contains information that sets out how this has been assessed, what my own conclusions are, and what me and my senior managers in the audit team, and indeed the whole audit staff, are looking to do to deliver on ensuring that we continue to retain that public sector internal audit standard obligation and the compliance with the code of ethics. So, to move on then, Chair, to the issue of 2021, we did, as a matter of routine, produce a internal audit plan for 2021 based on the standard risk assessment and the type of resource that we expected to have available. That essentially is the plan one. Being realistic, and the fact that we have got a third of the way into the year, and I've not been able to start an awful lot of the audit work that we would have done in Q1, that plan has become unrealistic. Part of that is down to issues about the actual way in which you can deliver some audit work. For example, it's not been possible to do any audit work in schools during the first or during the summer term, for reasons that everyone will be appreciative of, hopefully. We were also spending quite a lot of internal audit time addressing the key risks associated with things like the government's very large grant scheme that it wished to pay out to businesses based on business rates. So we've been sort of helping support that and various other things and issues that are arising within the council. So we haven't been following absolutely the plan, but from the beginning of this month, essentially, we have largely reverted to following the plan, and we are hopeful that we will be able to get into places like schools, or at least in, possibly not physically, but virtually. So From a point of view of virtual auditing, the core risks in the financial sense can be largely addressed because the council has a very robust accounting system and quite a lot of other computerized systems that we can obviously review and look at virtually. So as was mentioned by Grant Thornton, we are in a position whereby we can sort of complete an awful lot of work. The one bit which constitutes a risk area is the basis at which information is transferred between media, because not all data is input directly into the council's core systems, as you would expect. That for example, customers for council tax transactions can't necessarily input their data straight into the council tax system. It has to be reviewed by officers, and that point at which the transfer is being moved between data sources is an element of risk. That is a risk that we would normally assess by looking at physical paper and other records. So that is the highest area of risk about depending on a purely virtual system, in my opinion. Plus the fact that that if things are based on paper records or the like, then that is more difficult to trail. However, what we have got, and I've given you what the risk area is. What we have got is a plan, a proposal of what we would essentially reduce out to do as the audit plan, and that is the second of the audit plans that's contained within the pack of papers in front of everyone. Finally, before I stop my ramblings, for which I apologise, there is an audit charter. We're obliged under public sector internal audit standards to produce an audit charter, and this is the 2021 version. It is essentially unchanged again from that for 2019-20, over tiny amounts of editing and reformatting. So that's where we are, Chair. Happy to take questions from anybody who might have any.
Thank you very much, Martin. Whilst I give members an opportunity to indicate if they wish to, can I just thank you for what's, I think, with regard to the annual report for 2019-20, was a really positive report. There's a lot, clearly, as you know, the day's audit completed that in the report. There's been a considerable amount of work done, and the level of assurance, as you say, has improved. So that's really good news. And thank you very much for all of the work that you and your team do. We haven't had any indications to speak from members, so I'd like to propose that I'm content with the internal audit functions as set out at the bottom of page 87 in the officer's recommendations. John's seconded. Members have indicated that they're content as well, so I think we can progress. Thank you very much for that, Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Just worth me reminding you that we will have to have a degree of flexibility in relation to the delivery of the audit plan, I think, for the rest of the year, as set out in the recommendations in the report, and hopefully you'll be happy that I report this back to you at times as we have meetings through the year.
Yes, thank you very much, Martin.
Thank you, Chair.
So that brings us back to item number 7, which is the draft annual governance statement 2019-20, and I believe that's Simon.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, everybody. This is the latest version of the draft statement that we'd normally bring to committee in April, and thus far it includes input from a variety of sources, notably Martin's annual report you've just heard about, and from individual directors, but not yet from ET collectively or the Chief Executive. Now have a slot, I believe, on Friday for them to consider the statement in that format. So any comments or feedback from today, I'll let them know about on Friday, with a view to making any necessary revisions then. The statement itself will remain in draft this year for rather longer than normal. As you've heard, the annual accounts are unlikely to be approved before the end of November now. So that effectively means because the statement both relates to 1920 and to the period up until which the accounts are approved. Therefore, there is scope to incorporate changes and for ongoing pandemic-related issues to be reflected in the rest of 2020. So it's very much a draft statement, if you will. SIP for Solace have issued some guidance on the input of COVID, both on the format and the content of the statement, which I've tried to reflect in it. So, for example, there is a separate conclusion and opinion about the period from March. There are 1-2 caveats about the extent of the normal annual review process, and there's a little section identifying separate COVID-related significant issues. So effectively, the draft statement includes 2 opinions about the governance arrangements during the period of the statement, and both opinions conclude thus far that the arrangements have been fit for purpose overall, but as would normally be the case, various issues have been ongoing and new ones potentially have arisen too. So if I can take you to page 5, initially the review process has identified those issues for which progress has been interrupted or for various reasons insufficient for the matter to be resolved sufficiently. So members will recall that unusually there were 17 issues in 2018-19, which was mainly a reflection of a desire really to be self-aware prior to the corporate review. So overall, more than half of those have been attended to, and hopefully members will also be familiar with the fact that those that remain and the further action that's required in the blue table from pages 5 through to 9 from the quarterly annual action plan monitoring reports that we've been bringing during the year to committee and that also ET have considered. There are, as would normally be the case, also various new issues arising during 2019-20, and these have been considered during the review process so far, and effectively, these remain to be considered by ET collectively and the Chief Executive to ponder out whether or not they merit inclusion. As you'll be aware, that the statement is signed off by the Chief Exec and the leader and is essentially owned by them. So editorial rights, if you like, rest with them. Those issues are shown in the table in pages 9 and 10. As you'd expect, perhaps the peer review actions figure highly. There's perhaps consideration of the need for a more formalised assurance framework across the council. More strategic fraud management that's mentioned in Martin's annual report, and various health and safety issues regarding K&H and housing tenants. As I mentioned at the start, the impact of the pandemic on the council and its key objectives, like almost all other organisations, has been enormous. And whilst it's important to reflect that key services have continued to be delivered, there are a whole range of potential issues arising from March up until now and in the future that may merit inclusion either in this statement or the following year's statement. But as you'll note on the bottom of page 4, we've indicating that at this point in time, it's still perhaps too early to be confident with any degree of assurance that those issues merit inclusion now. Clearly, the position may change during the rest of 2020, so that perhaps the finalised statement may look a rather different document from that point of view. So what happens next? Well, the draft following ET's consideration later this week will be published with the unaudited accounts for inspection, and then in view of the unusual circumstances in timing this year, it's possibly a good idea for for a revised draft to come back for your further consideration, perhaps in a meeting or two's time, and then finally to come back for final approval with the annual accounts at the end of the year, hopefully. Simultaneously, we'll be bringing the action plan, which will be updated for the new and changed issues, to reflect what's ongoing now, because clearly we can't or the council can't wait till later in the year to attend to the important issues that are identified in the draft statement. So that's pretty much hopefully a summary of what is quite a long and unusual document this year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Simon. It's much appreciated. So we've got two members who've indicated to speak. So what I'm going to do, Simon, is I'm going to bring Councillor Smage in first, and then Councillor Taylor. So if you'd be able to take a note of the questions and comments, and then respond after they've both come in, and then if there's any supplementaries, we can bring them and yourself back in after. Yes. So, Councillor Smage.
Thank you. Page 17 of the papers, page 7 of the report. On the further action column, it talks about high needs placements, adult social care, children's improvement. And then it has a paragraph under that that states these priorities may be amended consequent to learning about real organisational priorities as a consequence of coronavirus. I wonder what is being said here. Are we saying that the priorities that are in those paragraphs above are not real organisational priorities, or is this something that has been put in that there's a different meaning to it? And can I ask also, are the committee going to be regularly reviewing this plan, because there are some issues that seem to have been here for a while, I think, and I'm just wondering what arrangements the committee is going to put in for keeping an eye on making sure some of these are completed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smage. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, a couple from me. One, and it's an apology to Steve, I tend to spot spelling mistakes. So on the bottom of page 4, there's a paragraph that starts significant issues. The very last line is what particular issues, we missed the IOS off issues. You just might want to put that back before this goes before the leader and the chief exec. And also similarly on page 7, under the strengthen partnership governance in the further actions, we've spelt stadium with 2 S's, and we've got the meant of development the wrong way around. So you just might want to fix those. But I do have a genuine point to make as well. Under the new issues, and this is me wearing one of my other hats, the redesign of the councillor role profile has been completed and has been through a leaders meeting and has been cascaded via group business managers. So you might just want to update that comment, Stephen, just before it goes in front of Shabir and Jackie, because obviously they're aware of that. If you want any guidance on that, it's Carl Whistlecraft's democracy team that have been leading with that. But we just might want to update the wording there just to be sort of complete today. But otherwise, good report. And I echo what Liz has said about how frequently this comes back to us. Although it does make a comment about that later on in the report, doesn't it? About bringing it back for review. But thank you.
Simon, do you want to respond to the points and questions that have been made? Thank you.
Yes, I will do. Thank you to both councillors for pointing out my deficiencies grammatically, which I will remedy. As regards the query from Councillor Smage, I think the comment you refer to was written or added at a time when there was considerable uncertainty, or even more considerable uncertainty about where we would be, perhaps at this point in time. My understanding is that the priorities that are expressed in the paragraph are very much the real priorities, but at that point in time, it was an attempt to just to flag up the general level of uncertainty about what would happen going forward. I suspect it's probably a case of tweaking the wording to reflect what's happened since and so forth. In terms of how the committee monitor progress or lack of progress in going forward, as I mentioned, there's a quarterly, there's a detailed action plan that sits behind this document with responsibility allocated to the relevant service director, and one or two of the, clearly some of the issues relate to Eamon and Julie who are present at most of the meetings, but also to other service directors as well. And we've got into the process of bringing in a quarterly update to both ET and to the committee, so that members can monitor on that frequency what's happening. And it's our intention to carry that forward. There is a bit of a timing thing when you're writing the statement on approving it in terms of tripping yourself up in approving things that haven't yet been agreed, but effectively the next meeting will receive certainly an update of what's been going on collectively for the issues that are already included, if that all makes sense.
Yes, thank you very much, Simon. Does anyone have any other questions, or would Councillor Taylor or Major like to come back? Sorry, John. Councillor Lee Richards has just indicated first. So, Councillor Lee Richards.
Sorry, just on page 7, it's only a matter because I don't understand what it means. After the little bit about Kirklees Stadium development and that, Kirklees Community Association, I don't recognise that group. Could you just explain to me what that is?
KCA is a body that the council has some governance links to, and they provide a number of activities, including housing management. Housing. I think they're effectively a landlord of some properties that K&H manage. That's the extent of my knowledge. Unfortunately, other officers might be out, so will certainly know more than I do if they want to indicate at this point.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, my dogs have stopped barking as well. I've just noticed that Kirklees Community Association back wrong time. But it was just I raised that point about the council role profile has now been completed, and you didn't make any comment to that. I am assuming you're going to update that action, because obviously I wouldn't really want it to go in front of Shabir and Jackie without recognising the fact that piece of work has been completed.
Yes, sorry, Councillor Taylor. Yes, I've noted that down, and I will make the necessary rewording for that. Sorry about that. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor, and thank you, Simon. Martin Durnley.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, yes, Simon's absolutely right that Kirklees Community Association is a separate charitable body, but all the directors essentially are, all the trustees are linked with the council. The council provides management services and the like, and its principal role is as a landlord. A large number of properties, or a random number of properties throughout the borough, plus quite a lot on Fieldhead Estate in Birstall or yeah. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Martin. Councillor Smage, you want to come back in?
Yes, thank you. It is Birstall, where KCA have a number of properties. Yes, I just wanted to come back on the question of review by the committee, because there are some here that they may change in nature as we move forward. But for instance, the continue to strengthen risk management action is still saying that this needs strengthening. And I would have thought there were some things in here that really did need quite a bit of work to bring them forward to completion for the committee to discuss.
Yes, sorry, Chair.
Yeah, I was just going to bring you in, Simon. Go ahead.
I think Councillor Smage is right to have identified that some of the issues in this statement will have been reflected in certainly last year's statement and for a number of years, and that's partly a reflection that some of these issues aren't necessarily in the council's direct control in terms of funding or whatever, and also because of the all-encompassing nature of some of these issues, that there isn't a quick fix which leads to them being brought forward from one year to the next, essentially. There has been progress in almost, well, I think probably fair to say in every area. It's a bit of a judgment call and a matter for debate about whether that progress has been sufficient to effectively omit the item from the statement in the following year. That's very much a subjective matter. And a case of drawing together the evidence that's been presented in the quarterly monitoring and coming to a view, and that's where very much members' help is appreciated in debating the issues that apply. As regards specifically risk management, Martin may be able to comment more on that as effectively the owner of that particular activity.
Martin, can I invite you to come in and give a brief response on that, please?
Yes, Chair. It's always difficult when you sort of get audited by people. So Simon's absolutely right that risk management continues to be a bit of a difficult area for the council. It is about the council has processes to generate information about risk, but they're probably not quite as sophisticated or as management controlled as they could be, and it's an area that sort of involves an awful lot of commitment. So whilst we are able to provide reports, and indeed these go both to the well, they normally go routinely to executive team and cabinet meeting informally. They also are at the moment going to the overview, the corporate scrutiny committee, as a matter of course. The risk management, the corporate mismanagement information also comes as part of financial management and budgeting information that's shared with annual council and council from time to time by Eamon. So we do have an awful lot of processes, but they aren't as deep, sophisticated, complex or as structured as they probably ought to be. But as Simon says, this is taking quite a long time. We had set a target of completing a particular further stage of the council's tidying up of its risk management arrangements by the end of March. And whilst we were broadly getting there, because we couldn't really pursue people at the absolute point of key crisis, that we have sort of put that on hold for the moment. But yeah, more generally, I would agree with Councillor Smage that it is right that we probably do need to have some kind of active monitoring, and because one of the roles of the committee is ensuring that the organisation has sound systems of control. So it is important that that members keep giving consideration to this matter. Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Martin. Barring anyone else indicating, I think some really good questions have been raised there, and thank you very much for the responses. So this is here now for our information and to comment prior to it coming back to us and then being approved by with the accounts. And then, as Simon says, we've got the quarterly monitoring that'll come to us in future as well. So are members happy to formally note the report? I'll propose it. Councillor Taylor seconded, and members are content. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you to the officers as well. Right, that brings us on to item number 12, I think you're the star of the show now, Martin. We've got you for the next three. So it's the Joshua Wood charity. If you can give us a brief summary of the issue, thank you.
Yes, Chair. Thank you very much. Yes, apologies that you keep having me as this is what happens in the live show as well, isn't it? So 300 years ago, a gentleman called Joshua Wood decided that he wanted to support the poor of Heckman-Wyke and did so in various ways. We've recently sold the piece of land owned by the Joshua Wood charity, and so the charity does now have a fairly significant amount of cash. So the charity's governance structure requires three parties to govern it at the moment. The Vicar of Birstall, which is a historical position as regards the structure of the Church of England in North Kirklees, the Church Wardens of Heckman-Wyke, and the Council as successors from Heckman-Wyke UDC and I think Heckman-Wyke Poor something committee. So the council is a 1/3 trustee of this charity, and the proposal that's being made is that the charity restructures itself in a way whereby the trusteeships are changed around. It's a little bit unwieldy because the council as corporate trustee is the cabinet, so meetings that have to take place between three different sets of individuals, each of whom have one vote, but one person has one vote, two people have one vote, and the collective cabinet has one vote. So the proposal is that the charity be restructured in a way whereby the council ceases to act as the corporate trustee. That will happen essentially happens automatically anyway, given the fact the charity now has no land. But from a governance point of view, there essentially are two choices that are being suggested. And these are ones which officers are of the view that the council may wish to support. One is that the council ceases to be a trustee at all. The alternative, and have any involvement at all. And the second is that actually the council chooses to nominate a member or someone to be the third trustee essentially, and that the other two trustees be restructured to be the vicar of Heckman-Wyke St James and the trustees and the church wardens of Heckman-Wyke St James. So having consulted with the relevant ward members, the ward members do have a preference for the council retaining an interest by nominating a trustee. So that's the proposal being put forward. This comes to this committee because it's this committee's role to actually oversee the appointing of members to outside bodies. The matter has been considered by the council in its role as corporate trustee through cabinet, and they were content with the proposal. So the council in its corporate trustee role is happy with this proposal of the restructuring, and this is a sort of part of the procedure. If members at CGSE today give approval for this or say they're happy with this, then we will put that proposal back to the other trustees, and then a formal trustees meeting will take place with a proposal to seek some amendments to the charity's deeds of operation.
Thank you very much, Martin. Much appreciated. I don't think any members have indicated to speak. If you want to, please do now. But I think this one's fairly straightforward. The local members have been consulted. One of them's in this meeting with us now. So I'm happy to propose that we endorse the resolution. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Lee Councillor Lee Richards seconded, and members are happy. So thank you very much, colleagues. Right, next item is number 13.
Sorry, can I just
Yep. Sorry, Liz.
Sorry, that's okay. Can you just clarify in the officer recommendations that it states the Vicar of Batley? Can you just clarify that the committee are agreeing that there is something wrong for the minutes to make sure that the mistake doesn't go through to the minutes? Thank you.
Thank you very much for highlighting that, Liz. Yes.
Yes, Chair. So apologies, Chair. Yes, I should have pointed out there are a couple of minor errors in the report, which hopefully haven't led anybody to misunderstand what's going on there. Yes, it's the reference to the Vicar of Batley is the Vicar of Birstall, and there is in paragraph 2.5 there's a couple of words that are superfluous, but they essentially say the same. It says shall cease twice. So yes.
Yeah.
Hopefully, everybody gets the core objectives of the report.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies.
So I understand and appreciate that, and I'm sure we can ensure the minutes reflect that as well. Thank you. Number 13, quarterly report of internal audit, Q4 2019-20, January 2020, March 2020. Martin Durnley.
Me again. Sorry, Chair. So there's 2 quarter reports here, and as members will recall, we do a tiny bit of this in public, and then we consider the report in more detail, my detailed report in private afterwards. So there are 2 reports for your consideration in the public session. The first of which relates to the 29 pieces of work we completed in the final quarter of 2019-20. The report sets out what they are. The report essentially re-summarises back information that relates to the annual report. So essentially, in considering the annual report, you, I suppose, really should have considered this report first. But this is part of that information. I would recommend that if members have particular questions other than of the base information that's contained within the report, we discuss it in the next session. So essentially two recommendations there, Chair, in relation to approval of the quarter report, and to note that there are no regulatory or investigatory powers activity during Q4 of 2019-20.
Thank you, Martin. I think members will want to save any questions or comments until we're in private session. So members happy to progress and accept that? Yes, thank you very much. 14, Martin, quarter report of internal audit, April 2020, June 2020.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a sort of very light report for reasons that I described about what we've been up to in the first quarter of 2020-21. In actual fact, it's fairly normal for the Q1's report to be a bit light in content and material, but this is, even super light for reasons that are described in the report. That we've spent most of the time, or we've put a lot of resource into helping our colleagues in the business rate team or in Exchequer Services with the control of these grants, and indeed an awful lot of time continues to be spent on that. But we do have a few pieces of work that arose, and they again are dealt with in more detail in the report that's with you for consideration in the next session.
Thank you, Martin. Anything now, members, or shall we progress? Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Martin, just a quick, tiny bit of clarity for myself. In paragraph 1.7, it says that there was no surveillance activity carried out in this quarter. Is that because none was scheduled, or because they weren't carried out because of the situation with the pandemic?
We report, Chair, on those that through you, Chair. We report on those that are done. So there was none done, whether for any reason whatsoever. It wasn't. I'm not aware that any was planned, but if it was, then it hasn't been done, basically, bluntly. That's the straight position. Yeah,
just none done. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you, Councillor Davis. No one else has indicated to speak, so we content to note the report and move forward. Yep. Right. Item 15 is the dates of future meetings. So members may have noted that our meetings have usually been on Fridays, but for the dates given, that won't be the case going forward. And Councillor Pinnock contacted myself and Lee to ask about this. So can I bring Lee in just to explain this?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, as you'll see, this committee normally does meet on a Friday. That's not been possible with the way the council diary is being arranged at the moment. The dates that are listed in the agenda, a couple of them fall on a Wednesday, which pose a problem for Councillor Pinnock due to a parliamentary commitment. So I think the question is whether members are happy to approve the dates for 10 o'clock starts, apart from the Wednesday meetings, which are 23rd of September and 20th of January. If members are flexible on the start time of that, we could maybe look to change the time to potentially 11 o'clock or an afternoon meeting, whichever's preferable.
Just before you come in, Councillor Taylor, I spoke to Councillor Pinnock this morning with that suggestion. She was content with that if it works for other members. So I'd be interested to hear if other members are happy with it. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
I'm fine to be flexible.
excellent. All of the members seem content, so thank you very much. Members will agree that as Lee's just explained. So we are now going to enter the beginning of the private session. So for anyone who's been watching, thank you very much for joining us. But I will now read out item 16, which is to resolve that under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following items of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act. So thank you very much, everyone,